On today's episode, Andrew's back, and we've got a conversation on the Invisible Man, coronavirus, the comment of the week, future video ideas, and more coming up right now.
You know, it's interesting. You said Andrew is back, and I didn't even know you recorded podcasts without me, because if I'm not on it, I'm not listening.
That's how I roll. I just do things and don't tell you about it.
Actually, I don't even have a way, unless you send me the audio file, to listen to anything I'm not on.
Hey, I've sent you the link. You just, because you have an Android phone, there's no way for you to activate the link.
And I could just go to the Patreon page, but I would have to actually become a patron. But I'm not going to become a patron to something I'm working on.
Exactly.
And so I downloaded one. I had to go through Google Play and find some obscure podcast app that would actually download an RSS feed.
Yeah.
Because Google Music or Google Play Music and Spotify don't allow that.
Right.
So
the moral of the story is Android sucks.
well, no, just at this point, only having a Patron-Only podcast where you just have an RSS feed it's a little difficult.
It is a little difficult.
Yeah.
But hey, speaking of, welcome to the Why It's Great Patron-Only Podcast, bringing you positive pop culture analysis. I'm Dan Drake, and joining me, as you've heard, is my brother Andrew.
It's supposed to be positive?
Yeah.
Oh.
Sorry.
Okay.
Today's episode is brought to you, of course, by you. You know that drill by now if you've been listening. Once again, we just want to thank you so much for your support. And we want to start with a segment we call Comment of the Week, where Andrew combs through the comments from our various YouTube channels. He picks one out without telling me which one he's picked, and then we make fun of me through it. So, hope you enjoy this segment. Here it is. Comment of the Week. What you got, Andrew?
Well, this week, this comment is actually in reply to myself and not you.
Oh. Change of pace.
I don't have sign-in credentials to the YouTube page, even though I am a co-creator. Sorry, that was just a cough.
You sure you don't have coronavirus, Andrew?
No, that was a.
Might want to get that cough looked at.
Yeah, that was a criticism cough, not a corona cough. Two different types of cough. Yeah. And so I have to go through the comments like some outsider and scroll through. I don't get notifications. The only time I get a notification is if I comment on one of our own videos and someone replies, which is this scenario. I think that adds
something to the channel. They see that they're interacting directly with a co-creator.
Yeah. So I go through and, the more like boneheaded, just like zero, hint of constructive criticism, I don't really reply to anymore. I tried to reply to them like jokingly, and like people just wouldn't get the joke. So I found, I found one on our Ad Astra video where someone basically commented, this movie is a lower your expectations turn off, a big yawn, blah, 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 saying there's like science errors and they don't like this movie's bad screenplay. And I was like,
was it from Neil deGrasse Tyson?
Yeah, it was Neil deGrasse Tyson. Yeah. And so I was like, you know what? Like, this one isn't that hateful. They're just saying, I didn't dig the movie. And so I just replied something as simple as, sorry you didn't like the movie. Thanks for watching our video. Because I thought, it would be nice to let someone know, like, thanks for just interacting with us. And I was thinking, oh, they're going to reply, oh, no problem. Like, I enjoyed the video, or you got it. Like, looking forward to more videos, or I don't know, no reply, something. I was not expecting this reply. So they said, thank you oh so much. Oh, starting off pretty good. I was like, oh, see, this is why you be positive. Like, you reply, and then just they come in right with the capital B but. But Later, I saw a much better, more fleshed out review that explained the movie much better. So now I think I'd like to see it very much more. Which, one, you don't have to tell me how great this other video was. Two, now you're thinking you're going to watch your whole first comment was about how much you hated the movie, and now you're saying you haven't even seen the movie?
Yeah.
And there's there's so much more going on in this. I would read the rest of the comment, but like the sentences don't make any sense, which is indicative of a YouTube comment. But I was just like, oh, thank you oh so much. But I watched a much better video that broke it down. It's like you don't have no.
This comment is like an enigma, because like on the surface it's just kind of like an ignorable, nonsensical comment, but if you actually start peeling back the onion layers, it's like it just reveals like an apple core, and you're like, what? This was an onion.
Here's the rest of the comment. After they told me about the much better video, they go on to write, but still, for all the things that rip against logic about this film that make it poorer in science and science fiction and social political flaws, the mythos aspect in the narrative is interesting, and the exciting CGI integration ? Was intriguing. ... Yeah, I might see it someday. I love Babylon Berlin. That's been on this mind the last few days.
What?
What? And no offense to this person, it's just I don't know what you're saying to me. I don't know if you've seen the movie. I don't know if you haven't seen the movie. I don't know if you're thanking me sarcastically or genuinely. I don't know if you're transforming into a different person every other word with a different personality. Like, I don't know if you're the guy from Split and it's just they're all coming out and typing and it's just changing personalities. I don't know.
I'm like really curious to know what other video they watched that they think is a better review. And first of all, our video is not even really a review. It's an essay on some of the themes in the film and explaining those themes, not a full-fledged review. But anyway, I do want to see like what video does this person that leaves a nonsensical comment watch and go, now this is a review I can get behind.
Look, I'm sure there are better videos on Ad Astra out there. Any movie we make a video on, there's going to be another video that's better. That's just how it works.
Absolutely.
But you don't have to tell me that the video was better. Especially after I was just like, thanks for watching.
Or if you do, please let us know what video it was, because then it would actually be helpful, because then we could watch it and we could learn.
That's like if I went to someone's house and they made me a dish that I had never had before. Like, I don't know, like I'm trying to think of something I've never had before. So, like just some, like a quiche. I don't know. Never think I've ever had a quiche.
You never
and I
had
was like,
quiche?
I don't think so.
Interesting.
I'm saying it. I don't even know what it is.
Quiche is delightful.
So Dan, let's say you made me a quiche.
Okay.
And I was like, one, I eat it and I go, I don't like this quiche for this, and that reason, but I might eat it later. Which one? I'm confused. You're confused because you saw me eat it, but now I'm talking as if I haven't even eaten it. But then you graciously just say, well, sorry you didn't like it, but thanks for trying it. And then I would reply,
that was awesome.
I'd be like, thanks for trying it. And then I reply a day later, I come back and I'm like, oh, Dan, you're welcome. But Bob made me a quiche. And let me tell you, this quiche, out of this world. And that quiche made me appreciate your quiche, but not in a way that your quiche was good, but it made me appreciate that I saw what you were doing with the quiche, and I now know that I have a taste for quiche, but just not that one. But thanks.
But now I really want to go back and try your quiche for the first time.
And you know
what? Even though I already told you that I tried your quiche.
You know what? In the future, I'm thinking I might actually take a bite of your quiche and see if it actually is any good.
But I thought you already tried it.
Yes, and it wasn't very good. But this other quiche makes me want to try your quiche.
Wow. I think we could talk about this for a lot longer, but for the sake of our listeners, I think we're going to transition. They are. So here's the plan. This Friday, the day you're possibly listening to this, we're going to release a video on the Invisible Man. And we haven't released a video in a couple weeks because #busy and #coronavirus. But I'm excited to get back in the saddle. And so let's talk Invisible Man. Now, what's different with this conversation as our normal conversations is we've actually already like basically made it. So this will be just a conversation on the movie in general and like breaking down what we've already done instead of looking into the future.
Yeah. In the video, I mean, I haven't seen the finished product, but I recorded the voiceover. It's only it's like 4 minutes or something, right?
It's at 5 minutes, I think.
5 minutes. So there's definitely room for further analysis on this film. I kind of wrote it purposefully to be short. I wrote it like literally the day after I saw The Invisible Man in theaters a couple weeks ago. So I'm looking forward to just, if you've already seen the video, further analysis, because I know Dan just watched it and I haven't talked to him about it. So I'd love to just get more, just to go deeper into the movie.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like, I really think your short and sweet video kind of touches on everything that needs to be touched on. Like,
well, okay, see you next week.
I mean, the reason I say that is not to say like, oh, Andrew, you did a perfect job, but it's more to say like, I mean, your video.
I mean, you can say that. That's fine.
What I'm saying is your short analysis video really highlighted everything that the film was trying to achieve, which is that the Invisible Man is basically a metaphor for women in an abusive relationship and how women are often not believed when they talk about the behavior of their significant other behind the scenes, because often that behavior is not recorded. They have no evidence. And so it might as well be, quote unquote, invisible. And I think that that's brilliant. It's not like some super deep observation that took like, only 1% of people are going to see. Like, it's a fairly obvious correlation, but I don't think that takes away anything from its message because of how effective the movie is at making you feel what it feels like to be in that situation. And the other thing is, I think that this movie does a really good job of letting the camera linger on empty space in a way that in other movies would seem awkward, but it never once feels awkward in this movie. Like, every weird camera to empty space is like earned, if that makes sense. Because I felt like going in, like knowing that would be the case, that like maybe the first time they just show empty space, I'm going to be taken out of the movie because I normally don't see that. And it's going to be like, this is kind of weird. But I don't even know really how they did it. It's just that the first time I see that, it didn't take me out of the movie. And I just later thought back and was like, they really earned that ability to do that and make me feel the tension in it and not go, why are they just lingering on a doorway? Like, I don't know. That's kind of my initial thoughts. It was a great movie. It was thrilling. It made me like, feel that dramatic irony where I know things that people don't know, and it makes me feel for that character. It's almost like the Meet the Parents effect, where all these bad things keep happening to the character and nobody's believing them, and you're just kind of like, can this possibly get worse? You just feel that sense of dread. And I think your video captures all of that. Now, could there be more to capture, like really dissecting the score or really dissecting like a certain scene and every camera angle and all its intention, or it's like dissecting its use of color and all these minute symbolism things? Sure, but like I don't know. I didn't catch any of that on the first watch because I feel like this movie is a little simpler than that. But that's not to take anything away from it.
It's very economical in a way. It really is like laser focus. It knows what it's trying to achieve. It has like kind of like a very singular message, whereas other movies there's like an overarching message, but then there are, subdivisions, kind of like, our Ad Astra video. It's talking about overall it's about a man finding humanity again, but then there's, a theological angle, a philosophical angle. This one, it is really more singular in nature, but I think there is a lot to discuss in terms of filmmaking, how Winnell aids that message with his filmmaking. But yeah, you're right. It is more singular in nature. And you also had the unique experience of reading like my analysis before seeing the film.
Right. I didn't read all of it, to be honest, but I read enough because I didn't want spoilers, but I read enough.
Well, I think also what we could do here, maybe not right now, but the video in my analysis doesn't really dive into the ending because I wanted it to be somewhat spoilery where if you've seen the ending, you know what I'm saying, but I didn't actually break down. Right. So we could talk about that later.
Well,
but yeah,
for the purposes here, like if you haven't seen it, you can, and you don't want it spoiled, I guess you can stop listening because from here on out, we're gonna spoil something from the end. But I know exactly what you mean, which is, well, that's right. It is on VOD. So you could go rent it and watch it right now. Which, we can talk about also in a second. But,
welcome to the podcast where we talk about what we're going to talk about soon.
Yeah.
Which we're going to talk about what we're going to talk about soon.
I'm subscribing. No, what I was saying is in the ending, they never actually straight up let the bad guy character admit that it was him. They do a lot with like seeing like facial expressions and seeing like emotion in the eyes, and I think that you can read into that what you want to read into it. For me, I think it made it pretty clear, especially when he said the word surprise to her when he's like when he came in close. I think that that's pretty like, okay, she was right. But he never like gives it to you straight and he says like, yes, I did do this, and they catch him on the wire and then he goes to jail. It was very much like subtle. And then what that does, I think, is allows you as a viewer to make your own judgment as to whether or not Elizabeth Moss's character did the right thing when she killed him. Like, is that a moral thing that she did? Was it right? Was it justified? Or is it not? And then her friend who's a cop being complicit in that lie, is that moral? Is that just? And I think those are really, really interesting questions, just in general, but especially in light of the bigger symbolic context of a woman in, let's say, a normal domestic abuse situation. Like if she did, perhaps out of self-defense, take matters into her own hands, like is that a right, just action? Is that deserved? Is, all those kind of things. And I think that that's kind of the brilliance of the film, is that it dives into all of that,
Yeah, that's what I loved about the ending, where in a vacuum, morally, I would call that very questionable. But the movie isn't at all trying to tell you if it was right or wrong. It's the ending is an indictment on society. It's saying,
right,
maybe not in this extreme of a scenario, but in real life, there often is no way for justice to be brought about through the right channels.
Yeah.
Because like you referenced earlier, it always is like, you know, based on just a testimony. There's not video evidence, there's not eyewitnesses, and so there's no way to it makes it very difficult to convict traditionally. And so you put humans, women in particular, in a scenario where they know what happened. Maybe people close to them believe them and know, but it's a slow, difficult process to get justice through the correct channels. And I like how her friend, the cop, is even insisting at the end, like, well, we can't do it this way. We have to do it this way, and we have to wait and take time. And that's not fair. And I
Right.
think the movie is just not trying to say it's not necessarily endorsing her actions. It's not advocating that kind of payback, but it's saying this is kind of how we're forcing people to get justice. It's an indictment, and because it's so outrageous, it hits the nail even harder on the head, and that point sits with you even more powerfully than it would if she just went about it a very normal way.
I really like what you said as it being an indictment. I like that word because as I was watching it, when she comes out of the house after, killing him basically, before she talks to the guy, there's like this camera, or it might even be after he walks away, but there's just like a lingering on her face as she walks up, and it made me feel contrasting emotions because on one hand I felt like, yeah, you go girl, like you get him, you find, like, I felt very like empowered, like, yeah, that was like totally the right thing to do. You're like an empowered woman, you're strong, you show him, you know what I mean? And I think that that's one reaction, but at the same time I was also like outside of myself indicting that feeling that I was feeling of going also like, but this, I don't know that this is a moral choice, even given the circumstances, the extreme circumstances of the plot of the film, but also the normal circumstances of, a woman battling domestic abuse. Is like, is killing someone ever justified? And so I was kind of like you said, indicting myself, and that's, I don't know. I think that speaks to the brilliance. It's like another level, which is the whole, female empowering movement in Me Too right now. And I think, on one hand, it's good to have movies that depict strong, independent women that are able to take care of themselves, because there's been so many movies made that are just males. But on the other hand, I think the movie threads a line by not being overt, by saying like, but can you take that too far? Can you ever take that too far? And I will be interested to see if they make a sequel to this, like if it makes enough money, because Universal is trying to, get their monster movie cinematic universe off the ground. So it's conceivable they'd make a sequel to this. I would love to see where, like, a sequel where Elizabeth Moss's character is now wearing the suit and she is like the titular invisible person, and the cop guy is feeling grief for having to keep this secret of helping her cover this up. And perhaps there's somebody that figures out the truth, somebody else that's like holding it over them, so that they kind of have to answer for this indictment of their behavior. I think that could be really interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if at this point I think the story needs a sequel. I mean, if he can find a way to sink deeper into those similar themes, in a way that continues the narrative, I'd be all for it. I think he's probably gonna just find like maybe do the same thing like he did with the Invisible Man, but do it with a different character. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I know the director. I was reading an interview and he was talking about the ending, and he said just like on a pure storytelling level, he always knew that's where the ending was going to go, because you can't have a character endure that much hardship and pain and abuse and not have them have their moment where they
Right.
ascend. And so I think even just on like a pure like storytelling beats, that was just always going to be the natural ending. like you can't have this character just be pushed down, pushed down, pushed down, and not have her even attempt that um like her moment to get her,
Yeah.
just desserts. But yeah, the ending, I love how as a viewer, like quote unquote the truth, but you don't have that objective proof. Like the movie never gives you like the actual proof, but
Right.
it does enough to like make you very, very confident. But I love how it keeps you in that mindset of, well, this is kind of how it would be in the real world, where I would know and I would believe, but I wouldn't have that objective piece of evidence, and it makes you uncomfortable. And I love endings that aren't necessarily advocating for, like in a preachy way, one type of morality or one type of viewpoint, but it ends in such a way as it makes you think about it more. So it's like, it's not necessarily preachy, but it is advocating a perspective by way of almost negation. Like it's showing you what the wrong way is. Like, okay, this way is wrong, but it's not necessarily forcing you into the right way. It's leaving you at a place where you're going to come to that conclusion yourself.
You know what's really interesting? I want to bring this up because of our previous conversation, one of our previous conversations, but I'm realizing now that in some ways there's a similarity between this movie and Joker. And it's interesting that me and you both like this movie and we don't like Joker. Because if you think about it, one of the points I wanted to bring up after you said what you said is that in a way, at the end, she has to defeat what she hates by becoming what she hates. Right? Because she puts on the suit, she terrorizes him, she kills him, she uses the same means of terror that he used against her against him to defeat him. So in a sense, she becomes the behavior that she feared in order to get away. And in this instance, I think me and you have this feeling of like, yeah, that like you go girl, kind of like I said before. But in Joker, if you think about the beats, the story is very simple. I mean, it's similar. It's like there's an abuse suffered. There's a character that is emotionally unstable as a result of that abuse. And at the end, they decide to become the very thing that made them that way. I don't know. How do you react to that?
I see what you're saying. And I think just like on a pure, like what it did for me, the main problem I have with Joker is, and we included it in our Oscar breakdown, was that I got the sense that the movie wasn't necessarily trying to say what Arthur's doing is good, but the way they film it and the way the scenes unfold, like sends the opposite message. So Joker was giving me like this weird like dissonance where, okay, I know the movie's not advocating for the way Joker responded to this. And I know that just from like interviews with the director and what he was going for. But when I watch the movie, I feel like the movie's actually, in a way, the way the scenes unfold, the way it's shot, saying the exact opposite message, where it's like these moments of transcendence and triumph for the Joker, and there's never a sense of like subtle condemnation, or anyway, it's like the movie, the way it's filmed is almost like, yes, this is his moment. Like you contrast that with Taxi Driver, another similar movie to the Joker. Scorsese's going out of his way to never make Travis Bickle look like a hero, or that there's always these subtle judgments of the camera. Like when he's on the phone with the girlfriend, the camera like almost like diverts its own eyes away. And it always paints him like sickly and never looking good. And like even when he does get his revenge, the way the scenes unfold, it's very just like, this is gross. Joker, you're watching it and it's like giving you goosebumps almost. And you're like, wait, this should be like a very tragic ending, but the ending feels triumphant. And again, like you're saying with The Invisible Man, I left feeling the mixed emotions, but almost like I felt like that was the purpose, was she gets her moment, but it's filmed in such a way where you feel like, oh yeah, I don't know if this is right. Whereas Joker, like the movie's almost telling you like, yes, this is how it is. Like, yes, like he's the Joker
like
now. Yay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree. I just thought it'd be an interesting, like, I just thought of the comparison. I thought this is really interesting. But you're right. It's because the Joker at the very end, like the camera's spinning around him and this grand thing, and the score
Everyone's
is like
cheering him.
everyone's cheering, and the score is so triumphant, and he's like
Like
he does the thing.
there's a way you could have that same scene where he's on the car, where everyone's cheering, and just the way you film it, like maybe further away, like no music, where the audience goes, "Oh, this isn't even." He's trap or
Right.
Arthur feels this is triumphant, but then the camera could take a perspective where it's like it doesn't look triumphant.
Yeah.
Like further back, make him look small, no score. Like, oh, this isn't good. I mean, the
Yep.
Invisible Man, and then another difference is like Elizabeth Moss only gets revenge on him, and
Right.
it is morally questionable, but it's not like she then extends that to the
Leads a
police
group of
and
anarchists against the
right.
entire
Whereas
city.
like in Joker, Arthur like not only gets morally questionable revenge, like he takes it so far where it's not even morally questionable; it's morally reprehensible.
Reprehensible.
I
Yeah.
think that's another difference. Is like Invisible Man toys with that line where it's like, is it right or is it wrong? But then at one point in the Joker, it's like he's murdering someone in cold blood on a TV show. It's like, yeah, there's nothing morally questionable about that. And if you think
Right.
it is, like, I'm scared.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
It's true. And
but yeah,
Invisible
no,
Man, it's
that's
like
a good point.
they use. Thank you. In the Invisible Man, they use Elizabeth Moss, like basically static shot. She just like walks up to it, and it's basically her staring at you, going, "How are you gonna feel about this?"
Yeah, like
Instead
the
of
way her face is, like
yeah,
there is music, but it's like she doesn't look like she's thrilled about what
yep.
happened, whereas the Joker's like, yes, I am very happy that so
I think what's interesting about this conversation is just like being able to analyze one work stacked up against another with similar themes, and I'm glad we ended up doing that because I think it's
yeah,
valuable to help understand the Invisible Man by contrasting it with a similar film that
yeah. And I
that
know
didn't
this is
do it as good.
why it's great, and we're not trying to like poo-poo the Joker. We could have a whole conversation about the stuff we did like in the Joker. There's a
Absolutely.
ton of stuff there. I just don't think the movie as a whole worked. I don't hate the movie.
Yeah.
It's whatever. But
One video idea I had was to take basically like look at the great cinematography of the Joker, removed from the idea that cinematography is there to serve the story, but just take the cinematography in a vacuum. Because one of the things I noticed is as I was like scrubbing through the movie to get clips to put in, literally almost every shot is objectively beautiful. Like I could take a random still frame out of any point in the movie and go, that kind of looks like a painting, like looks like a work of art. From the colors to the composition, like it is objectively a beautifully shot film. It's just when you put all those beautiful shots next to one another at 24 frames per second, it doesn't end up communicating anything in line with the story beats.
yeah.
But I think if you just put those shots back to back with like no with just like music, you would kind of go, "Man, this movie is beautiful."
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it'd be worth it though. Honestly,
Yeah.
like we already got even the little bit of flack we got on our Joker, why it's great Oscar, where it's like, I thought this was gonna be why Joker's great.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
But um,
Well, let's move on and talk about coronavirus and how it has,
because no
unless you have
one's
more
been
to say.
talking about that.
Well, yeah. I don't want to spend too much time on it.
No. I think what's interesting, we're not experts on COVID-19 or how it affects our bodies or like we're not scientists, but I think what we could talk about is how it could potentially affect movie theaters and the
Right?
future of cinema because we're already seeing studios like Universal today, Friday when it's released, is releasing Invisible Man early on VOD and what is it, The Hunt, the
Yep.
movie Damon Lindelof wrote, and a couple other movies. And more and more movies get delayed and pushed back, like Black Widow, which is coming out in May, has already been delayed.
I mean,
So
Fast
it's like
9 got delayed,
Fast
and
9,
No Time to
James
Die got
Bond.
delayed. Yeah.
So this, and not only are movies that are already like locked production wise and like post production wise, movies that are still filming are getting delayed. So what does that mean for their future release? Like how will this moment in time right now, as we're all quarantined and everything, how is that going to affect movies 6 months, a year from now?
I mean, yeah, like potentially. I mean, the way movie studios work is obviously they're selecting the release dates strategically, not only to think through like when is the best time for each specific movie, but also on a macro scale to go, we want to make sure every weekend has a good movie. Like, because, if you delay movies that are already made and done, you can still kind of do that. But if you're delaying the production of movies, that means there might be a stretch a year from now where several weekends go by and there's just no movie to release. Or like there's one movie to release, literally, that's it. And the other thing studios do, you may not be aware of this, is what's known as counter programming. And it's that might sound derogatory to certain movies, but I don't think it's meant to make a judgment. I think it just is what it is. Like there'll be movies that are smaller budget that tend to be more chick flick in nature, more emotional, and just subtler films that usually come out the same weekend as like Fast and Furious. And the reason for that is like if a whole family goes to the theater, you've got like, well, the boys in the family are going to go see Fast and Furious, and then the girls are going to see this other thing, or however that breaks down. That was very sexist of me, but uh, you get how it goes. But what if there's a
But
world
the
where like
studios are thinking in a sexist way, so
that's true, and so what happens if a year from now you feel the fallout and it's like, well, this weekend there's only one movie coming out, and it's you know some Oscar baity
well,
genre movie.
yeah. Let me pose this question to you. I don't think Universal is releasing these movies early out of the kindness of their heart for the people who are locked indoors.
Oh no, they're still
There
going to
might
charge
That's a
15
small
bucks,
part.
20
Yeah,
bucks for it.
this is obviously a test, I think.
Mm.
And here's my question to you. What if Universal does this and they see a huge spike in people buying it? Because they're going to charge people $20 for a rental
Right.
that they can watch at their house. And
For like
let's
48
say
hours or something.
Disney starts uploading like Mulan and Black Widow to Disney Plus, or let's say some other studios start doing early rentals and it's a huge hit. What are your thoughts on the future of movies being immediately on VOD, and that the majority people watch new movies at their homes first, or that's how they primarily watch the movies? What are your thoughts on that?
I think I'm going to say I'm optimistic and that I like it, and here's why. I think one, the world was already moving that direction anyway. And so this may just push that forward a little bit, which I think could be good, and I'll explain why in a bit. But imagine a world where every movie that comes out is released on a streaming platform first, and it costs $15 to $20 to watch. One, that's going to make more money for those movies. Two, it might end up making more money for smaller budget movies, where all of a sudden movies that have a little bit more depth to them start getting made, because right now they're really not. But I think that you could make an argument that perhaps this format would allow for some smaller budget, more creative, original programming to actually make more money. Therefore, get more of those get made. But the other thing is, I think it will help make the movie theater experience more special. Now, it might mean that it becomes more expensive to go to the movies, but I think if you go to the movies perhaps less often, it'll, even out. But I love the theater experience, but more and more you're able to kind of, if you have a certain amount of means, you can start to build a theater at your house for not that much money. Like there was a time where it was like only millionaires had that. And now it's like if you make 50 grand a year, you can basically do that. And so I don't know. There's something to the theater experience. Like perhaps movie theaters will be like a regular theater. Like you don't go to that many Broadway shows in a year, but the ones you go to, they're more expensive, but they're like,
Well,
it becomes a bigger thing because it's rare.
what
And I think that people that love the theater experience will then get to have a better theater experience.
like well
Does that
you
make
already
sense?
referenced it. Yeah, it's already kind of been hinting in that direction because
Right.
like people are seeing movies in the theater less and less each year, and the ones they are actually going out to see are Fast and Furious, Marvel
Right.
movies, DC
Right.
movies, and then every once in a while, like a horror movie will really spike it.
Right.
So I'm a bit torn because I love seeing every movie I can in the theater. I just love the
Yeah.
theater. I know that's not popular. I also do love enjoying watching movies from the comfort of my home, and like you said, I think smaller to mid-budget movies which don't draw a huge theater crowd could actually potentially make more money because people sitting at home are easier to click and watch that movie because if they're by themselves, they're not going to see it in the theater if they can't get friends.
Right.
And so they'll just spend that $20, watch it rental or whatever. And so I think those mid-budget movies could make more money, like you said. But also, I think the theater isn't going to die. It's just going to
No.
become a stronger version of which it already is, which is theaters going to be like, here's 3 or 4 IMAX screens.
Yep.
There's really going to be no other screens, and people are going to go out to the blockbusters. And so
Yeah.
big
Well,
Marvel
and
movies are only
yeah.
aren't going to hit VOD early.
No.
Those are going to be theaters, get that money. But then I do think there's going to be an increase in this direct to rental, direct on demand.
Yeah, and I think what's going to happen, well, we'll look at it this way. When the iPad came out, people were like, "Oh no, nobody's going to read physical books anymore." Well, guess what? They do. You know, MP3s came out, and they're like, "Nobody's going to do physical music anymore." Well, guess what? Vinyl is at an all-time high of sales right now. It's
Yeah.
like every time there's a change, people get scared. I just think it's going to shift. Like the newspaper is still a thing. How long has the newspaper been a thing? Like it's not going to go away. It's just going
They
to be
don't
different.
employ as many people, but yeah.
Right. Record stores are still a thing. And I think what's going to happen is movie theaters in like densely populated cities are going to do better than probably in middle America, unfortunately for somebody who lives in middle America. But like imagine New York City, you're going to have like these small like art house cinema houses that are going to be showing, you know, the more artsy films. And so people that want to see smaller budget movies on celluloid on a big screen are going to be able to do that if you live in densely populated cities. Maybe less opportunity to do that in St. Louis. But you know, it's just kind of going to be the way it is. And again, I don't think that's a bad thing because especially as somebody that has a YouTube channel talking about movies, who has a child and a family, like I'm not going to be able to go out in the theater and see. Right now, I'm not able to go out in the theater and see these movies in a timely manner to get a video out. But if I can watch it on video on demand, then I can't. Like
Well,
it's going to help
think
our
about it.
channel.
Think about it like this: our best done video, or not best done, but the one that got the most hits was The Irishman. Well,
Right.
that released on Netflix for everyone to watch, so it was already a highly searchable movie
Right.
that everyone watched at the same time. You had time to watch, make a video really quick, and we
Yep.
got it in right on time. New releases, like Invisible Man released like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we're just now releasing one of our videos on it. And
Right.
so
Because it
that
takes
would
time
give
to
us
go to the
time.
theater. Yeah.
We could
Absolutely.
we could get closer to the release of movies and hit while it's hot with an increase of on demand, whereas I have time to go to the theater and write something, but you don't, and you're editing it and you don't want to be spoiled, so
Right.
yeah, it makes it difficult.
So I don't know.
So
I think
you lose something, you gain other things. That's kind of how
exactly.
it
And
is.
selfishly for a channel, I think it's good. But even regardless of that, I still think it's good. It's oh, I was going to say something else. The reason I think it's good that it happened sooner rather than later, because like we said, I think it was going to go this way, is because right now there's still a large amount of people that value the movie theater experience. And I think if this change happens sooner, those people are going to make sure that the theater experience sticks around for longer. Now, if this happened 10 years down the line, I don't know that that would be true. And so the fact that this is happening now allows whatever audience is left that still like really loves movie theater experience, I think that's going to be a larger number, and it allows those people to still fight for the movie theater experience with the decision to go and spend their money in that way, if that makes sense.
It'll be interesting to see what the results of what Universal's doing, who follows suit, because honestly, I'll probably drop $20 to rewatch The Invisible Man, and I'll definitely drop $20 to watch The Hunt, which I didn't get to see in theaters. So
yeah,
I think it's going to work, honestly.
I do too.
Another thing we didn't talk about, though, was that not only are movies being delayed, like either like the release or the filming, it's happening to TV shows too.
Oh, right.
Because like Fargo season 4 was delayed, and I was like, why? It was already shot. And I was like, oh wait, they're probably still editing that thing,
right,
and doing like ADR, but they can't have all those editors probably working in a room together. So like all that final post-production stuff's being delayed. Like network shows that like film on like pretty tight schedules to release are being delayed, like coming back from the winter break. Like this is pretty unprecedented.
Which again is, you know, opportunity for us, right? Because in this time, there's going to hit a point where perhaps, you know, there's less to watch on TV because a lot of shows are being delayed, and there's less movies. And so if people continue to be quarantined at home, there's going to reach a point where you're like, I've watched everything I want to watch on Netflix. None of my network shows are on right now on Hulu. And I don't have another $20 to drop right now because my like job is hanging in the balance. So it's like, where do you turn? Well, YouTube is free. And so like if we can create decent content just like everybody else, I mean the competition's going to be stiffer, but you know, we can make sure to be putting stuff out that is giving people something to do or watch that's positive in a time that's got a lot of uncertainty.
Speaking of which, let's shift to the end and talk about the future videos. Give people a little taste of what we already have in the works and maybe brainstorm some things we can do in these coming weeks.
Yeah, I'll start with like I had a list going of like video ideas, but a lot of them revolved around you know, when movies were going to be released. Exactly. And so if those get delayed, I might change my tune a little bit. I still like the idea of going back and hitting some of the Criterion stuff. Like I want to do All Quiet on the Western Front, but I don't know if I'm going to get to that. I want to do the new Pearl Jam album, like do something on Pearl Jam.
Of course, yep.
And so we've got this Invisible Man one coming out this week. Next week, I've already shot and I'm editing one about The Quiet Place, which that was going to come out with the sequel this week, but that got delayed. And so if they end up doing a video on demand, like I might just drop it next week anyway, regardless.
Yeah.
But at some point, I think the timing for that will be good.
Well, and I have a script written for a video on John Mayer, which could honestly be released any time. But
I think so.
If we're trying to if we're trying to release more content in this, you know, time we found ourselves in, like that's one we can release. That's all it needs is a voiceover and some clips.
Right. But I also had ideas for like coronavirus specific stuff. Like in this time, like I said, people are going to maybe run out of things to watch. And so what if we could create for each platform, like, you know, here's everything that's on Netflix that we've seen and we like, and here's like a brief snippet of why we think you should watch it if you haven't. I think that would be really helpful for people whose normal shows maybe are on hiatus and they go, man, I'm going on Netflix, but like I don't want to take a chance on something. And the beauty of that is, like, that could be several videos, right? Like, we could sit down and record it once, but out of that goes, like, okay, all the TV shows on Netflix that we've seen and we like, and all the movies on Netflix we've seen and we like, and then all the TV shows on Hulu we've seen and we liked, all the movies on Hulu we've seen and we liked. Like, that's 4 videos.
What's great on Netflix, and then
Exactly.
something like quarantine watch, something like a subtitle that references that. And yeah,
exactly. And then there's
honestly,
Amazon, and then there's HBO.
That's something we should be writing right now.
Yeah, because I think that would be so helpful. I know as a viewer for myself, like, we can spend 30 minutes just deciding what we want to watch, and that's like wasted time, especially for families that have kids. It's like, I just want to watch a 5-minute YouTube video that wets my whistle on something, turns me on to something that the Netflix algorithm isn't giving me, and, you know, helps me decide in a much faster time.
We could both make top 5s, must watches for each, and then kind of combine them.
Yeah,
or
again,
we could do top 5 shows, top 5 movies.
Top 5 shows, top 5 movies for each platform. Netflix, Hulu, Amazon, and I think you could even do like HBO, Showtime, because that's another way to help stimulate the economy. Is like, maybe it's time, if you have security in your job and the disposable income, and you're not going out to eat as much and you're not doing certain things, you can go, for this month, I'm going to get HBO and just check it out. Or do a free trial. Like, we can do a lot more services. Disney Plus. I don't know. Because
there's not much on Disney Plus.
I mean, that video would be Mandalorian.
You guys like Marvel movies, right?
Yeah. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. And I mean,
I think that's a great idea.
I don't want to do anything else to like I almost wrote up a thing of like why self-quarantine is great. But I think there's already, I don't want to step into that space. I don't want to do anything else that's too on the nose. But I am open to more, because that'll be, I mean, gosh, that could end up being like 8 to 10 videos. So that's pretty good. But is there any other ideas?
Well, with those, like, we could drop them as a series, like we did with the Oscars, where we dropped them all at once, you know?
Exactly.
No, honestly, we have, just in all that, we have enough content for a good amount of weeks. And I also like leaving room for more inspiration-driven videos, like I like to call them. Like the ones that just, like the John Mayer one, I was just sitting around and I was like, oh, I have something to say, and I wrote it. So stuff like that.
That reminds me, I had a thing like that. I haven't written it yet, but I don't even think I've talked to you about it. But like several weeks ago, I was sick one day. It was a Sunday, which really sucked because I was supposed to work that day. I had to call in sick, and I hate calling in sick on Sundays. But I ended up having the whole day, so I watched the entire last season of Mr. Robot in one sitting, which I loved, but because I would never really get to watch it otherwise. But I also hate watching things in one sitting like that. Anyway, but it just reminded me of how amazing the supporting characters are on Mr. Robot. Like, and not only the supporting characters that are regular supporting characters, but like somebody that's in one scene in one episode of the whole series, like, still is an amazing supporting character with weird quirks, with interesting mannerisms. And it made me like wonder if there's a way to do a video on how to create memorable characters looking at Mr. Robot. What do you think about that?
Yeah, make it like a Trojan horse video where Mr. Robot gets you in the door, but the video is actually about how to make great supporting characters.
Yeah.
I like it. I would probably, I like it enough to do some independent research and do some reading about it. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it too much because we could make that its own podcast episode, like breaking that down. Well,
absolutely. I don't want to talk about it right now, except to just like further give you some things to run with. Like, I don't know if you have it available, but at some point, if you can find it, go back to the last season and just like watch a random episode, because I think it happens in almost every episode. And look, like, here's a specific example. In one of the last episodes of the season, Elliot is being escorted to meet with White Rose for their like final showdown, and the guy's like eating an apple. And oh no, he's eating a burger. He's literally eating a hamburger while he's like, and he never speaks. And I'm like, this character has never shown up before, and he's super menacing. He will never show up again. And already I'm like, this is one of my favorite characters.
Yeah.
And it's like stuff like that happened over and over in that season.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's definitely some good food for thought. For sure.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Why It's Great Patron-Only Podcast. I might actually do a fun thing where, because we have video of this, I might put this on the YouTube channel as a like wet the whistle for people.
Now you're telling me? I could have got better lighting. I could have sat up straight. Are you serious? I look like a vampire from Twilight. The lighting in here makes me look so pale.
Because I look so good right now too.
Well, excuse me, it's not all about you.
No, it might. I could do it just audio only. Also, I just had the idea just
That's
now.
Such a Dan thing. Such a
that
Dan
I
thing.
could take this and make it more
Did
publicly
I pick my nose at
available.
all?
I'm gonna make a separate video where I count
Oh,
every
what?
time me and Andrew touch our face during coronavirus.
I think I had a close call. I scratched my nose, but it might have looked like a pick.
I think you were turned the other way.
Yeah.
It was a scratch. I don't know. I don't know how I'm gonna use this.
Well, if it's on YouTube, I sincerely apologize so much. I don't always, like, I'm not saying I look great, but I've looked better.
Me too. I'm wearing a random cardigan and my sriracha shirt.
I literally, when we started the Skype video, I was like, man, I look so pale. Good thing this is just a podcast. I had that exact thought. I was like, I'm just, it's like an overcast sky right now, and I have the shades open, but like I could have tried some like different lighting or something. Like, I don't does this help?
That's worse.
Does this help? What
It's
about
much
this?
worse.
Hey, hold on. I have different color settings. What about that?
Ooh,
Yeah, see? Isn't this thing pretty cool?
that's nice.
Yeah. How about that? How about this? I could have just sat with this thing on my head like that.
You've never looked more beautiful.
I have an idea. It's to take this thing off my head.
Anyway, thank you
Okay.
for listening or watching. If we're public with this, we do this for every video release for patrons only. And if you're seeing this now and you go, hey, these two numbskulls sound like and look like people that I want to hang out with on a regular basis, then you can
Don't you
check
want
us
to
out.
pay for this? Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Oh,
I
man.
saw. Yeah. I bet everyone listening to this for the first time was like subconsciously reaching for their wallet. I'm like, wait, why am I touching my wallet right now?
You can go to patreon.com/whyitsgreat, and for as little as $1 per month, you can be part of the hilarity on a regular basis. But this has been the Why It's Great Patron-Only Podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time. Wash your hands.